Welcome everyone to our new video on discipleship. We are working through the fact that forgiveness leads to loving. Now in Luke 6, what we are reading here is not that God is saying, or Jesus is saying, Jesus is speaking, that sinners do not love. The love is simply very limited. So if a sinner's loved, that sinner will love back. But if someone is mean to the sinner, then that sinner will probably be mean back. And so, however, God is asking us to reach a different level. And it says here, "But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be the sons of the Most High." So one of the core principles in Christianity is that we are being asked and being demanded of that we are like God himself. And so if God is kind to the ungrateful and the evil, and he's merciful, then that's what we have to do. Right, this really goes against the grain. The natural flesh, the natural worldly way of doing things, no, that doesn't work. But if we are living by the Spirit, if we're living according to God's rules and regulations, if we're living according to his life, then we'll be in a position to be kind to the ungrateful and to the evil, and we'll be in position to be merciful. John 14, everybody knows it. "If you love me, you will obey my commandments." If we have somewhat of a religious bent to us, we might come to the conclusion that God is up on his throne and he says, "Okay, I want you to do, let's say, 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups and 5 pull-ups and run around the track 4 times. You go out and do that, and God says, "You know what? That guy just did what I told him to do, and so that proves to me that he loves me." And this random God giving random commands out to his subjects and seeing whether they do what he says or not is not really the point here in this verse in John 14:15. God is not just randomly making comments and seeing if we follow those or not. John 15 verse 12 gives a little more detail about what is in John 14:15. "My commandment is this," he's defining it. He says, "to love one another as I have loved you." Right? So we know from Matthew 25 that Jesus says that as you've treated the least of these, you've treated me. So Jesus is making a connection between, how we treat our neighbor is how we treat Jesus. And so if we treat our neighbor with love, then we are in turn loving Jesus. That's a pretty simple, straightforward logic. And so we need to be careful how we're loving each other. Further on, it says, "No one has greater love than this, than to lay down his life for his friends." That's the ultimate. Now, we might not be in a position where we have to lay down our lives physically, but certainly every single person will be asked to lay their life down for someone else. Someone else will want something, and we will really want something else, but we'll have to defer to the other person. This is what this comes down to. Jesus continues, "Then I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you forever, the Spirit of truth." Notice the order here. First comes love, 1, and then 2 comes the truth. Okay, and let's contrast this to the Pharisees, right? The Pharisees had lots and lots and lots of truth. They spent all day long, every day, reading and researching the truth, the law, the prophetic books, the historical record. They knew the truth, but they weren't into love. Well, they were into love. We learned in another video that they loved money, right? They loved, we didn't go into it, but they also loved being in the prominent position. They wanted to be in the first seat. They wanted to be greeted in the marketplace, right? They wanted to be adored by the peoples. And this is something that every single person in ministry has to be really careful of. The devil will tempt you with money, and he will tempt you with adoration from the people. That is trying to puff you up, trying to get you to become arrogant, trying to get you to love the adoration of the people, so that your attention is on pleasing the people as opposed to pleasing God. So this is very important. Notice Jesus, the order from Jesus is love and then truth. The Pharisees had love, but in the wrong direction. We want to have love towards one another, and then after that, we can get around to truth. As far as the order of importance, that doesn't mean that truth is not important. It just means that love is more important. And so when we stand before God in heaven, he's not going to give us a quiz on our doctrine. Well, Scott, you got that right, you got that right, and you got that right. I could get 1,000 things right, but that's going to give me one single point. The big thing is going to be, did I love my children? Did I love my wife? Did I love my boss? Did I love my customers? Did I love my neighbors? That's going to give me the 10,000 points. How much I know is going to give me 1 point, and how much I love is going to give me the 10,000 points. So I need to be focused on how much I love. Romans 5, right? The love of God has been poured out in our hearts. So what happens when this occurs? Right? Every single person who has gone through the gate has had the love of God to some measure poured in his or her heart. But God demonstrated his own love, the same love that God poured into our hearts for us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And again, most of us aren't going to have to lay down our physical life, that is, die for another. But we will have to give up some things. We will, in some way, shape, or form, give up what we want, what our body wants, what our desires are for the good of another. And it might be for a sinner. It might be someone who's been mean to us. It might be someone who's been really obnoxious and did who knows what. Now, I want to say a little caveat here, is that this passage of text does not upend the verses concerning government. It is government's job, specifically, it is the only government's job, to punish wrongdoers, and to honor those who do right. And so that job of the government has not been repealed by this verse. And so those people who do wrong should be punished, and certainly by government. That's the job of government. And then we do also have the verses in the Psalms where King David is praying prophetically that God gives him justice against those who are doing wrong to him. And so there's a time for that. There's a time to say, God, I'm looking for justice here. This person did something wrong to me. There's a time to call the police and say, hey, there's a burglar in my house. You need to get rid of him, right? But there's also a place where God is going to ask you, lay your life down, right? And that is something every Christian will be confronted with. If the love of God is in us, there will be a time where God says, okay, it's true. You were unjustly dealt with. Someone was mean to you, someone did something wrong to you, but this is what I'm asking of you to do. I'm asking you to lay your life down. And so maybe, just by the way God works, maybe you're watching this video at a time right after someone did something wrong to you, and it's God is calling you to say, okay, give it up, let it go, just let it go. Don't respond. Luke 7:47. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven. Thus she loved much. But the one who is forgiven little loves little. Now it's my understanding that there are sins that are bigger than others, and there may be people who have sinned more than others, and so their sin pile might be this big, and the other sinner's pile might be a little shorter. But if we're honest, I think we'll all have to come to the conclusion that we've all sinned a lot. There's no one out there, if we're honest, who has sinned just a little bit. And so therefore, we need to be doing what the top of the verses is talking about, right? And so the person who has been forgiven much, not only has he been, or her in this case, it's a woman Jesus is talking about. In this case, it's not only the fact that she's been forgiven much, it's also the fact that she understands how much she has been forgiven. Because if you've been forgiven much, but you don't know how much you've been forgiven, well, you might be down in the loving little box. And so the challenge for those people watching this video is, the homework is to take a little time out and think about all the things that God has forgiven you of. What are they? What are they? Not in a sense of condemning, I'm an evil person, I'm a bad person, and condemnation, right? We're not going towards condemnation. This is not what we're getting at. But there are really only a few things that are important. We have to know who we are without God. We have to know who God is, and we have to know who we are with God. And so we take an assessment of who we were without God, and we take an assessment of who we are with God, and we see this gap, right? And we understand that we've been forgiven quite a bit, right? Everybody's got all kinds of skeletons in their closet. It reminds me of a story I heard of a famous preacher, and he was in his prayer time, more maybe accurately, a complaining session with God. And he was saying, all these people are telling lies about me and smearing my name. And God speaks to him and says, well, would you like them to know the truth? Right? I think everybody can relate to that. Regardless of what lies someone has said to you, Would you rather them know the truth? Probably not. I wouldn't. No, thank you. God has forgiven me quite a bit. And so if we understand how much God has forgiven us, I think that unlocks the door a little bit in saying, you know what, maybe I'll be merciful here. Maybe I won't respond in kind because God didn't do that to me. God, if anybody's just in putting the hammer down on me, well, God does, because I've done a lot of wrong to him. I've done a lot of wrong to other people. And so since God has forgiven me, well, that means I got to forgive other people. So when someone is mean to me, well, then I need to be a little cooler in my response. I want to be responding in love and not the way the world does. So amen. So in this course, we hope, in this video, we hope that we have a greater understanding that forgiveness does indeed lead to loving others. Amen. Until next time. Bye.